can be a game changer for not just smallholder farmers, but those who are in its value chain. And we will explore critical role of access to financial resources, innovative agricultural technologies, and efficient digital payment systems. This is to bridge the gap between smallholder farmers and the opportunities that they urgently need. However, it's important to acknowledge that we are still at the early stages of integrating these digital tools in rural economies. Many farmers encounter hurdles such as low digital literacy, infrastructure gaps, and lack of tailored financial products. Now you can see in your screen, you can share your thoughts over the Menti, or you can use the Q&A button to also ask your questions in the duration of this webinar. And before we start, a few housekeeping rules. So we will be recording this session as this will be made publicly available after the session concludes. If you have, again, questions for our speakers, you can enter them in the Q&A box that you can see on the lower part of your screen. And you can also direct the questions specifically to the speaker you would want to ask. And we will be compiling all of these questions a little later on during our moderated Q&A. And if you have any technical issues that you encounter during the session, don't hesitate to reach out to Erica, who's there. You can't see her, but she's there. Erica at growasia.org for any assistance. Again, welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon. Again, you're tuning in to the Grow Asia Digital Learning Series. The DLS is a regular platform to share insights and learnings on how digital solutions can be developed and scaled to benefit smallholder farmers across the region. The DLS is part of the regional program Grow Ventures of Grow Asia, supported by IFAD, Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs of the Republic of Korea, Visa, which is our partner for today's session, and Thailand. This webinar serves as a platform to share and discuss. We will hear industry experts who will navigate the nexus of public and private sectors to pioneer solutions to address these challenges. Their insights will shine a light on practical strategies and success stories, also challenges that demonstrate how digital finance can empower farmers, enhance access to technology, and create market opportunities. I encourage you all to engage actively in today's session, share your thoughts, and explore the path we lie ahead. Thank you for joining us once again, and we'll get started. No, we've already started. We'll get to the formal part of our session. You'll see on your screen today's agenda and our presenters and speakers for today's discussion. Erica, next slide, please. Just a brief background about us. We are from Grow Asia. We're a multi-stakeholder platform working in both commercial nonprofit partnerships to create an ecosystem of support, knowledge sharing, collaboration, innovation, and policy change. We started in 2025, and this year we are celebrating a decade of impact. You will see that on our, this is a kickstart for our year ahead. And we are highlighting our work on Grow Ventures, or Agri-Food Innovation Program today. Accelerating the adoption of climate-smart innovations require a shift to a collaborative innovation ecosystem that integrates various stakeholders to overcome fragmented delivery systems and foster investments in the agri-food space. And we gather here today to explore the role of digital finance in enhancing agriculture technology and livelihood, and converse how solutions help reshape the rural potential. Right. Before we dive in, let's take a moment to acknowledge our esteemed discussants. You'll get to know them a little bit better. And we are honored to have industry leaders with us whose insight will enrich our conversation. Please join me in welcoming them briefly as we highlight their impressive backgrounds and work in field. And this session will be moderated by me. Or to kick things off, I would like to introduce first Isvary from Isvary is the Southeast Asia lead for the Better Than Cash Alliance. Her digital financial inclusion experience spans research and advisory on digital transformation and institutions, governments, and digital product development and associated risks across Asia and Africa. Isvary will be walking us through an overview of the digital finance and agriculture space, especially in the region, and with a particular focus on the Indonesia cocoa sector. Over to you, Isvary.
Thank you very much, Borj. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to start by thanking the folks at Grow Asia for bringing us all together for this very important conversation. We can move to the next slide. I just want to introduce the Better Than Cash Alliance. We are a UN-based partnership of governments, companies, and international organizations. And our mission is really to accelerate the transition from cash to digital payments, to importantly reduce poverty and ultimately achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. You'll see that we work across the world, across the various regions, and our partners within government and also in the corporate sector, including alliances like the World Cocoa Foundation, the Ethical Tea Partnership, the Sustainable Coffee Challenge, who represent then the largest buyers of these crops globally, are very critical to the work that we do with smallholders and agriculture specifically. We move on to the next slide. I do want to highlight a guiding principle for us, or guiding framework, which we call the UN Principles for Responsible Digital Payments. As you all know, the world has changed with regards to digitization and digital financial services since COVID. There's been a massive proliferation of services and products in the market. We think that this is great because this means that digital financial services could be made accessible to more customers, including lower income ones. That includes smallholders, of course. But what this framework also acknowledges is that with every sort of growth comes risks, which are extremely important to mitigate, and which is critical for our mission in leaving no one behind, including smallholder farmers. So this has been a guiding framework for our work, and we think it's really important in also building trust in digital financial services broadly, especially for lower income customers and customers who are being newly exposed to digital financial inclusion, including farmers and women in the agricultural sector. So I'd like to then move to the next slide to also talk a little bit about, what is our focus and how do we see digitization of agricultural value chains and payments specifically, but by extension, broader financial services as bringing impact to farmers. On this slide, you see how the alliance really works. But if we move on to the next slide, this gives you an explanation of what exactly do we mean by meaningful impact. Ultimately, we can digitize cash to digital payments. We can open accounts for smallholders, but how does this actually impact the lives of smallholders in a way that delivers also maximum benefits for them? So I think the first one is really around advancing financial equality for women and youth farmers. We see a gap broadly, whether it's in agriculture or not, but in lower income segments, we see broadly a gap in access to financial services for women. And we find that digital payments or solutions could potentially scale both access and use, provided that they're designed in the right way. Secondly, we see the interest that companies have in sustainable value chains, certified value chains, and the living income agenda being also advanced through the use of digital payments. As you know, digital payments can be instant. They are definitely more transparent than cash. And with the data that we are generating through digital payments, we then can provide a broader suite of products and services, including credit, insurance, as well as savings and pension for smallholders. And this access to this broader suite of products is really critical when we talk about some of the emerging risks that hit our smallholder farmers to a much bigger scale, including climate change, where smallholders need to build their resilience and also find ways to adapt to the changing climate. And last but not least, agriculture is important because it is fundamental to ensuring food security. And this is ultimately tied to ensuring that farmers remain productive. All over the world and in several value chains, we see concerns and challenges around maintaining productivity. And this is where we see digital financial services through the access of a formal financial account, transaction account. So this can be a bank or e-money account, as long as it's regulated as contributing to productive gains in agriculture as well. So very quickly, I'd just like to move on to the next slide and talk about our work in Indonesia, where we looked at the cocoa sector. Many of you may know that Indonesia is a major producer of cocoa, and 98% of this is produced by smallholder farmers, right? And a third of them are women, approximately. And the major growing regions in this country are Sulawesi and North Sumatra. So we really focused our work in the island of Sulawesi, where 70% of total production actually happens. Moving on to the next slide. I think we looked at this problem of digital payments, or how do we actually provide greater access to digital financial service in this value chain, from two different ways. From the perspective of companies, there was already a lot of interest to digitize crop payments because there was a recognition of how digital payments support transparency and the certification process that many cocoa companies are interested in. But we also know that we need to demonstrate the value of digital payments to smallholders themselves for there to be buy-in and acceptance of this product. So we also needed to look at the demand side. And when we looked at the demand side, it became quite clear that payments in itself is not the challenge that we're trying to solve. When we look at the challenges of the cocoa sector in Indonesia, and at the high level, this is, how do we solve this productivity challenge? It is partly a result of insufficient access to credit, right? Both for sort of short-term needs, but also longer-term needs to address replanting of trees and so forth. So there is a significant credit gap, but there isn't much supply in terms of the products being offered by the financial institutions in the market today. And the issue or the let's say the challenge that we see in Indonesia is not unique to Indonesia. It's something we see in many markets, where there is this struggle by the supply side to justify why they should invest in building this rural digital payments or rural digital financial services infrastructure, because the assumption is that the volumes of transactions or the values of transaction are too low to be sustainable. So we really wanted to prove this wrong, and I think the numbers speak for themselves. We move on to the next slide. We see that there are a huge number of payments both when you look at regular payments and premium payments to cocoa farmers just in Sulawesi that are happening in cash. If you look at revenues, this is amounting to annually 706 million. If you look at transactions for regular, farm input payments that smallholders make, that's another 258 million. And in addition to the revenues received, certified farmers also receive premiums for the higher quality crop that they produce. And this amounts to another 5.14 million. So the figures are not small. There's certainly a business opportunity. And I think our conversations with financial service providers also brought to light that, there is a market. And beyond farm business, beyond farm payments and finance, at the household level, there are also other businesses run by the farmer's wife, the other household members that could provide additional business opportunities for the financial institutions. So let's move to the next slide. And I think I just want to focus on some of the enablers that we see in specific value chains like cocoa, but this also applies to value chains like coffee, rubber, palm, of course, which are important across Southeast Asia, where this driver around sustainability that buyers have is increasing the commitment to certification of value chains. And this just means that more and more farmers over a period of time will need to be certified because of commitments that companies have made. And this, the good point about this is that certification and certified value chains also increases the value proposition for digitization. It also reduces the risk for financial service providers compared to uncertified value chain. So I won't spend too much time. We go a lot into this detail. But what I want to mention in the report, so please have a look at it. But what I want to mention is that in certified value chains, companies are also collecting vast amounts of data on farmers, on smallholder farmers. In addition to this data that's being collected, as payments get digitized, more data becomes available. And what data actually allows for is an ability for financial services to then mitigate their risk, lower their costs. And ultimately, what this achieves is then helping to scale this product and service to more and more farmers, which is what we like to see. So I just like to move to the last slide where I'm really speaking directly to financial service providers who are hopefully in the audience as well, because we really do need your help and your interest in these value chains, because you are critical actors that are providing, who have the ability to provide the right type of product to smallholder farmers. And I just want to reiterate here the point that I made earlier about the fact that, there is a market, there is a business opportunity. The numbers are not small by any means, and this is just looking at cocoa in Indonesia, in one island of Indonesia, right? So just imagine what this means in other similar value chains. And beyond digitizing payments in itself, over time, when trust is built, both the farmers as well as ancillary actors such as traders in the value chain can be onboarded, can be cross-sold products such as credit, savings, insurance, which then provides an expanded business opportunity for financial services and also makes the ecosystem more sustainable. So with that, I'd like to conclude with my last slide, where there's also a QR to the report, which goes a lot deeper into some of the things that I've said, and I encourage you to have a look. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isvary. And for those who are interested, we'll also share the link to Isvary's to the BTCA's report a little later as well on once we post this webinar, and really resonate with Isvary what you mentioned of having that ecosystem for smallholder farmers. really is critical in looking not just the risk, but also building the trust along the supply chain. And we'll get back to you on some questions so later on our moderated Q&A. And I encourage the co-speakers as well. If you have any questions for your co-speakers, let me know and we can moderate that a little later. Thanks again, Isvary. Now over to an example actually from this space. I'd like to introduce Ravi Iyer, is presently the Asia Pacific head of pre-sales at Visa Government Solutions, with over 2 decades of experience in the digital payments and IT industries. In both APAC and global markets, he has significantly contributed to the digital transformation across a range of sectors, providing scalable and future-proof digital solutions. Now let's hear from Ravi. Over to you then, Ravi.
Thank you, Borj. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be part of this digital learning series. And thank you, Gracia, for setting up this. To begin with, next slide, Erica, please. All right, so Visa is a payment network, if you're not familiar, and we have a partner of over 15,000 financial institutions globally. And with this network, we also are able to access over 11 billion endpoints globally. So these endpoints are typically of how you can transfer to and from the money both ways across the globe. So Visa is focused on specific products and services to address the agriculture needs. So some are financial literacy programs, credit debit cards to drive financial inclusion, and focused on both the unbanked as well as the underbanked. We're also looking at the digital farmer loans, which helps to ease as well as to transfer the loan in a secure and an efficient way, and which also provides rich data, as I'll speak more through the next few slides. But what essentially is driving through this is a data-driven risk management, which is very critical for loans to be effective and to be scaled across a larger platform and more regions. So Visa partners with financial institutions, and through these financial institutions, we issue these cards. It could be debit cards, credit cards. And a typical loan which would land with a bank account, we disperse the same loan through these cards. And what these benefits do is it actually empowers the MSME and the farmers with a sustainable growth, because what digital finance gives is a whole digital end-to-end overview. For example, digital application, the digital credit scoring, you have a digital disbursement. The repayments could be, again, done through digitally. Now, all the system leaves a footprint which helps the farmer to build a credit profile. Now, you'll see that the credit profile is at the center of any loan or any credit where a financial institution is making critical decisions. So, and the card enables you to build that footprint and the profile as well. Now, not only that, is a farmer would want to be having a cash flow statement, a better accounting process. Now, a card gives you an end-to-end view of all these transactions. Now, also, more importantly, is to have a control over expenses. What is being spent, potentially driving up to accountability and set up a P&L, which a lot of farmers may not be actually tracking on a regular basis. So from a financial institution perspective, I would like to highlight a few of the factors that significantly influence the role of agriculture finance for them. So firstly, financial inclusion. So it could be through training, it could be through community groups, it could be through focused efforts through government or cooperatives. Financial inclusion becomes the stepping stone for everything that can fall through for a digital finance. Risk management becomes at the center of it. So how does data of a farmer, including land records, crop, satellite data, which a lot of ag techs are doing, are very critical again for financial institutions to make these decisions. Now, but most importantly, a bank or a financial institution to go digital, they're looking at how does it drive efficiency? How does it potentially reduce cost in both sales as well as operations. And all this leads to a smarter, data-driven decision making. Either it could be loans, or it could be into what crop, what region, or which, how to scale and enhance the credit portfolio of a financial institution. So given that, I want to share a few products that banks potentially are using and are investing into scaling the digital finance. A lot of you are familiar with mobile banking apps. The platform is also extending into digital credit loan platforms where the end-to-end process is through digital as well. Blockchain is a very effective tool, and Visa has worked with few partners to drive blockchain-based funding as well. Agri-tech at the core of this whole digital finance. It's about data. And then finally, insurance. How does the risk management tie into products like crop insurance and other forms of machinery insurance that the farmer as well as the financial institutions are protected? Next slide, Erica. So with this being said, let's pause and see what are the benefits by going digital. Now, a loan to a farmer could come from a government, it could come from a financial institution, or they could be external funding providers. But one lens, if you look at a funding provider, is they all need more visibility into where their funds are being used, so they understand the risks that comes with it, and also to manage these risks better. Now, there is also how do you reduce misuse of funds? Now, when you disperse through cards, you can actually control where the card is being spent and where the card is restricted to be spent. So there's a big reduction in terms of the misuse of funds and lower operational costs, as I was talking earlier. Now, when we come to the financial intermediaries, why should they go digital and why should they finance it through that method? It's more revenue stream. Now, when you go digital, there are additional revenue streams for the financial institutions. Now, not only that, operational and sales cost comes down significantly as well. Now, through digital, you can upsell, cross-sell products, which essentially deepens the relationship for both the merchants as well as the clients. And if you look at the bottom section, this is on a similar note, you will see how cards can also help the supply chain by improving the cash flow and to secure the transactions across the supply chain. Now, what is indicated here is a typical, it may not apply for all the crop, but in a generic way, there are 3 levels of supply chain. So the same dollar gets rotated across these 3 levels. And we consistently see that there is a cash flow for either working capital or other requirements that all these key stakeholders would need. And that's where the card comes and solves a significant way of reducing the cash flow requirements, as well as to have an immediate way to spend and pay later. So with this being said, I want to highlight a couple of case studies that Visa has done across the globe. And to start with is Bangladesh. So Visa worked with a partner bank called BRAC Bank, and we rolled out Smart Farmers Credit Card. Now, the card also came with select training materials, so the farmers get to understand what digital finance is about and what are the key benefits to them. So this is targeted towards a financial inclusion program of over 2 million cattle and marginal farmers. Now we see these farmers exchange over 12.7 billion US dollars every year through the sale of cattle or other transactions. So the goal is to issue these cards and reduce the cash, because cash did bring into issues of loss, theft, fraud, and potentially digital alleviates all those issues as well. So moving on into Cote d'Ivoire and a little bit onto the cocoa. Cote d'Ivoire produces over 40% of the world's cocoa. And one of the significant challenges was, again, cash, because farmers had to travel for a certain distance to sell their produce and travel back with cash, and there were targets of theft. And to solve this, as also provide transparency, Visa partnered with a local digital wallet and with the Cote d'Ivoire's government as well to issue cards to all these farmers and have this entire ecosystem accountable through the card transaction. So the transaction was digital and every step of the cocoa journey was made into digital. So which drastically impacts every farmer and they don't have to deal with cash and deal with any of those theft related issues. And finally, something closer to Singapore, where I'm sitting, is Vietnam. Now, during COVID, Visa and Vietnam's e-commerce and digital economy agency, we partnered together and we looked at how do we accelerate the adoption of tap-to-phone technology. Now, what this technology means is a farmer has a smartphone, and this technology converts the existing smartphone into a POS terminal, or in other words, a payment acceptance terminal. Now, this technology again pushes towards financial inclusion as well as to drive cashless economy. Because a farmer goes to sell this produce, and if there's cash, they have to carry the cash back, and they could potentially become targets of theft or other forms of fraud. And this cashless transaction, by using their smartphones as a payment acceptance, was able to scale and solve several issues. We do have several other key studies across the globe, but all in the concept of financial inclusion, digital finance, data-driven decision making, and finally making sure the funding providers, which are typically the banks and the government, to have reduced risk and to be able to see that lending to agriculture is easy, efficient, and scalable. So with that, I'll close my presentation, but looking forward to engaging with all of you through questions and the panel discussion as well. Thank you.
Wow, great. Thank you so much, Ravi. And thanks for sharing as well some of the really case studies on the ground, how Visa had worked with different commodities in globally, especially. And you've mentioned a little bit on the importance of data and how the digital footprint would potentially support the farmers. I think we'll have some of the questions for you a little later. But for now, you also mentioned something about mobile banking app. So that's one of our next speakers to highlight as well. I'd like to welcome Renen Santiago. Renen brings with him 20 years of experience in consumer sales and distribution, channel strategies and development, demonstrating exceptional performance and significantly contributing to the organization. At Maya in the Philippines, he spearheads initiatives to expand Maya's micro SME segment, driving the adoption to Maya Business Solutions and significantly growing Maya Bank's loan portfolio in the micro and SME segments. I'll turn it over to Renen to give us some examples from the Philippines. Over to you, Renen.
Thank you, Borge. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Croatia, and good afternoon to everyone. Also, as Borge have said, so we're from the Philippines, and Maya is a Philippine-owned company. And it's just a backgrounder of what we do currently on the space of payments, of digital payments. So, as you see on the screen, we are the #1 merchant acquirer. We claim to be the #1 merchant acquirer in the country, processing about 60% of all the digital and card transactions in the country. So we're using credit card or using your digital wallet is what we are currently supporting, and transforming ourselves as well to becoming the #1 digital bank in terms of the number of bank customers that are depositing savings with us, and of course providing a loan portfolio to our base, right? So we live we primarily function as an ecosystem play in regards to addressing the pain points of our customers, at the same time our merchants. We have a wide array of digital products and products that we are offering based on what the what is the need of the client. Say, for example, if you're a merchant who sells agricultural products, and then we enable you with platforms that you can use to accept payments or otherwise transact with your suppliers. We provide you banking services, not only your access to savings, but also providing you the loan that you can use for your capital, right? And we have a base, we have a very rich base in terms of our consumer who uses our wallet for payments, and that's at the same time for uh, 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 using it for bills payment or otherwise your personal transactions. And of course, our consumer banking that really drives adoption on the underserved to the underserved or those that are actually new to bank, right? So um, and as you know, in the Philippines, we are still a cash-heavy country, but as we go along, we have been seeing that there's a lot of adoption already happening on the digital payment space. The next slide will show you that in our segment, we are consciously looking into the last mile, basically providing cashless payments or digital payments to uh, the vendors or the merchants that are actually selling agricultural products, right? So, and it's not only on the last mile that we enable, but we also enable the suppliers and of course the farmers using through our digital platforms that they can actually use transact, whether it be you're sending money from one point to another or otherwise buying your products within the app. Partnering with farmers and partnering with suppliers is also one of our key uh, drivers that we want to focus on this year, and of course, giving that access or ability for the farmers to also showcase their products within our platform, right? The next slide will also show you that in terms of access to capital, and as I've said, we are catering to most of our merchants or most of our users are actually the underbanked or they're served in terms of providing or in terms of having access to banking. And the last 2 years, we have been able to drive that adoption to digital funding or basically your loans via your digital application, right? So instead of you going to a branch of a bank, we now give you that ability in the comfort of your space or comfort of your from where you are, and you can actually just get up a loan for as low as $60 or actually 3,000 peso to as high as $7,000 or actually about 350,000 pesos depending on what you do, right? So we have been somehow winning on that space. We're in these people that we are or these merchants that we are actually catering to are those that doesn't have really access to it. And by doing that, we now see a growth in terms of their portfolio as far as their business is concerned, especially those farmers that we have in the provinces. And we're seeing that, apart from focusing on financial inclusion, we now are actually transforming ourselves to provide the best, services that will promote their financial well-being, right? So going to the next slide, that's the reason why we're also transforming our centers in the community to become the financial health centers in the country. So that's basically catering uh, to our bottom of the pyramid or otherwise the community-based people that can actually transact banking services within our partner Maya centers, right? So this is how we are doing currently, and that's how we are really trying to support the farmers and of course specifically those that the merchants that are actually selling agricultural products. So in a nutshell, we are really we are really happy to really collaborate with the rest of the partners that we have here. And if ever you have interest in terms of knowing more on how we can do and how we can help you, those are our services that we want that we can offer and provide to our merchants and consumers. I think that's it for me, Erica and Words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renen. And it's really great to hear some of the how you want to be closer to the field. And I know there may be some of the challenges going to that. And I think our next speaker would be able to share some of this regional and in-country experience specifically in various commodities, but also on the cacao sector to start, but also different commodities now. And to share with us that experience, I'm please welcome Manfred Borer from KOLTIVA. He is the co-founder of KOLTIVA Indonesia in 2013, successfully established KOLTIVA AG in Switzerland together with other founders, and he brings forward human-centered technology, one of the phrases that we like here in Grow Asia, with its professional services, boots on the ground, and empowerment method that helps more than 1 million plus smallholder producers and business users to improve their livelihoods in rural areas. Now I'll pass it over to you, Manfred. Go ahead.
Thank you, Board. You can hear me well? All good? You see the slides? All right, thank you. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, we founded KOLTIVA 2013 as an agri-tech company supporting multinational companies in cocoa, especially cocoa in the beginning, but also other commodities on mapping their supply chains, right? Putting them on a map, establish traceability from seed to table, and engaging with coaching activities, training activities to organize farmer groups. In 2021, we figured out, okay, traceability is a one-way street. Nice to map the whole supply chain, put them on a map, but then where is the transparency, right? Did the farmer get paid? Do they make money? What happens with middlemen? Where are the profits in the chain? And that's when we started to integrate KOLTIPay, our fintech solutions, fully integrated in our agri-tech. As the world moves forward and into more climate tech, so we're also starting to branding certain services from our company, as we're mapping not only the smallholder and their plots with polygons, we can also, through satellite image, obviously, monitor land use change, and from there, greenhouse gas emissions, Scope 3 emissions, and integrating climate smart agriculture with all the smallholders we work with. So we're a fully integrated end-to-end service platform, a kind of a triple tech, working with our clients beyond traceability. Beyond traceability goes beyond just mapping, obviously. Now, currently, the world talks everyone about mapping for EUDR, European No Deforestation Regulation, and other sustainability initiatives. Mapping puts the farmers on a map, as it says, and it provides data from seed to table. But the power is, as we already learned from other presenters, is in the data, to analyze this data, to make value of this data. And one huge benefit of KOLTIVA, obviously, is we have a full end-to-end integration. So it's not like a data silo that doesn't talk to another data silo. It's all fully integrated within one single platform. Financial inclusion, topic of the webinar. So we've released the KOLTIPay in 2021 as a wallet integrated into our smallholder application, the Farm Cloud, Farm Gate for the traders, and Farm Retail for agri-input shops. But it's more than just a cashless wallet to pay some PPOB for insurances or crop insurances. It's also for a premium distribution, so fully transparent distribution of cash from the final buyers through cashless distribution directly to the smallholder farmers instead of cash handed over by bags through the supply chains from processors to traders to middlemen, and then hopefully eventually to the smallholder farmers. We've also fully integrated, obviously, loan repayment systems and loans that can be applied directly by the smallholders, either through the Farm Cloud application or supported by our extension services. A small case study, so we're working currently on providing smallholder farmer loans, agri-input loans in the cocoa sector. Here, one example in Aceh, where we work together with Abler Nordic, but we also work in coffee in South Sumatra and in Kalimantan on replanting in palm oil. These are then obviously larger loans, so this is just starting that new initiative. We've built the experience on rural finance on the example of cocoa, where we executed last year 624 loans with roughly 2,000 smallholder farmers we actively engage with. So it's not just a loan to a smallholder farmer we don't know. We know all these farmers by name. There is a picture, there is a full mapping of their household. We work together with those farmers on capacity building, good agriculture practice, financial literacy training, and then obviously also monitoring farm action plans to further support them to properly use all the inputs to actually achieve measurable inputs on the farm. Just providing a loan alone will not result into more trees planted or better trees planted, hence more revenue and income. It has to come as a full package, full farm service to support those smallholder farmers. We'd like to run you through an end-to-end integration of such an example here in Aceh, for example, in cocoa. So all starts with the quality trace management information system. That's the ones who pays for all those services, the big multinational clients, agribusinesses, manufacturers, retailers. They're telling us, okay, here is our supply chain. Please go out there and map all those traders, all those processes, to map the full supply chain, to put the traders on a map. Those traders, the last mile before it goes to the smallholder farmers, they tell us, our field agents, where are the smallholder producers based? They go there, they map their plots, walk around the farms, count every single tree. And obviously, it's not only land mapping and farmer household mapping, it's also verification related to a loan. So one visit, we directly collect all the information that is eventually needed to access farmer loans. When producers, traders, processors, the whole supply chain is mapped, then obviously the traceability starts to happen. Crop procurement through our digital ecosystem. And obviously, cashless payment between agribusinesses and the processors. Obviously, we have Visa and other big payment providers. That's already for several years fully cashless through banking system. We can mirror these transactions as well in our platform. But the power of our service is then obviously between the middlemen, the traders, and the producers for cashless transparency that the farmers actually receive the cash that's reported up to the clients. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, mostly we work in sustainable, responsible supply chains, single origin supply chains, high value. There are premium payments. So instead of handing over cash step by step down the chain, the big end clients, they transfer it directly through our platform, directly to the smallholder farmers based on the volume they sold. So traceability as a mean to distribute premium payments. Then, if farmers actually have cash on the wallet, they can start spending it. They can pay our producer engagement team directly for coaching sessions, additional replanting services, harvest services, fertilization services. It doesn't mean everything has to be paid by the big multinationals or donors. It can be paid by smallholder farmers if they finally are empowered and make money in their business. With more money in their hands, obviously, they can engage with agri-input shops, buy inputs, what they need to map those shops, agri-input shops all over Indonesia. We have as well our supplier engagement team. They map, verify those shops, make sure they're existing, that they put the products into our online platform. Then they can start selling those products to the smallholder producers. And obviously, the producer can pay cashless. They can go to the shop, pick it up, or even ask our field agents when they pass through to deliver it. And also, same thing with the multinationals. Often we have a case, they don't want to give cash to smallholder farmers for their hard work to produce better and more crop and to be sustainable and ethical producing. We can also create KOLTIVA points through our management information system. They can be then changed into seedlings or other agri-inputs directly in an agri-input shops. As farmers are, I believe so, are growing, getting richer through more transparent, more traceable, more ethical farming practices, they want to grow. They can buy a neighbor's farm. Maybe, you know, overaging farmers is a huge problem in Indonesia and worldwide. Average farmer age close to 60 years old. Next generation is not yet willing to go back unless they figure out if our digital solution, it makes their life so much easier. Meaning they need money to buy those unproductive plots next to them. So they can apply through our ecosystem directly as well for loans, working capital, cashless loan distribution through the producer, or directly to the agri-input shop, and then the seedlings, fertilizers, planting materials directly delivered to the producers. But then You know, the big challenge in any kind of buy now, pay later loan programs, how are you going to get their money back? So yes, if farmers actually make money through selling better, more to the clients, they're getting more premiums, they have the cash to pay back those loans, or through directly selling the crop through our ecosystem to the trader, the farm gate user, all these KOLTIVA hubs out in rural Indonesia, they can directly deduct the loan. So they see through every crop transaction that there is an outstanding loan. They deduct a little bit on every transaction, never in full. So farmers still keep on selling their products through these traders. And then obviously through our ecosystem, the loan is paid back to the bank. That's our end-to-end software solution we've built over the last 10, 15 years in Indonesia. And obviously we have 100 or 1,000 more case studies and interesting example on how to work with sustainable supply chains. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manfred, for that example, and also really resonates with us the closed loop model and closed loop ecosystem. I see some of your co-speakers also smiling because it's something that we have also been looking at in terms of specifically digital financial models in the agriculture sector. Now, I think we have some questions, and thank you to the speakers for actually answering already some of the questions that were posted on the Q&A. And we have, I think, less than 10 minutes now because of the presentation. I will just ask one question in general for each of the panelists. And we can start with, I think, one of the things that we are really not yet unable to recognize in the presentations and in the discussion at the moment is really the role of government and policymakers, and how, what is their role in creating an enabling environment for digital finance in agriculture, financing in agriculture, and all of this kind of technological disruption that is coming into not just the region, but in country, and specifically in the areas where we grow our food. So I can go across, not across, but around the virtual room. And should I start with Isvary first? What are your thoughts on the role of government and policy in terms of creating that environment?
Thank you, Borj, for that question. It is indeed a very important one. And, I think what we've heard from all the speakers is that a big objective for us is to scale, right? Just given the numbers of smallholders that are under or unserved today. And a fundamental contributor to the scale is the cost. So we need to drive the cost of providing digital financial services and accessing digital financial services down. So what all of you would have seen across the ASEAN region is the proliferation of low-cost payment channels, largely enabled by QR codes, which are, standardized, interoperable QR codes issued by the central banks. So this is a regulatory sort of innovation, and it has been enabled by policies and regulations that have been jointly consulted and developed with industry over the last couple of years. So I think this is an example of the role that governments have to play, particularly financial sector regulators. And of course, as regulators, they have a lot of touch points with the industry as well. And so ensuring that, the risks around consumer protection are protected with the right regulations, the right sort of financial literacy, digital literacy, product knowledge can also be incorporated, not as standalone initiatives, but as part of broader farmer-focused initiatives that many regional or local governments run, is also critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Isvary. Any one of the speakers? I see, Ravi, you're unmuting yourself. Go ahead.
I know. I just answered the same thing on the Q&A as well. I think spot on with Ishwari's answer. Just to add, a couple of things that we've seen has worked really well to trigger the whole digital finance ecosystem are subsidies and incentive. A lot of card-based programs have triggered through these programs. Also, some of these policies need to be more flexible towards public-private partnerships. Not all the governments have that flexibility at this point. As well as, once all this is done, the capacity building becomes the bottleneck. So how does the governments come and enable their existing infrastructure, including the cooperatives, are some of these three things that I would probably highlight.
Thanks, Ravi. Anyone else from our speakers who would want to respond to that question? I'm opening it up. All right, great. I think we have some questions on the Q&A, and those are all great points and something that we also, as in the closed loop model, as Manfred has shown, there's also that component of the government in terms of, having that enabling environment for us to be able to conduct business and to also looking at that incentive, as Ravi mentioned, in subsidy and incentives for really proliferating this types of disruptive technology, I would say, still on some areas in Southeast Asia. I think we have one, actually a question that I have on hand, but also a question from one of the attendees is how do we reach, not specifically, not in verbatim this question, but in your experience, how do you get closer to smallholder farmers, especially with the shift, that smallholder farmers, obviously there's a gap in terms of technology savviness, as one of our audiences pointed out. What is the strategy to use that you use to enable these types of kind of currently a gap in terms of using technology really on the farm level? And I'd borrow boots on the ground thing as well on this question. Let me go to Manfred for this question, since you have been closer to a lot of the farm activities as well.
Yeah, the boots on the ground, that's key, right? So that's what we learned like 18 years ago, 19 years ago, when I just started to work in Indonesia, right? So nothing just changed, right? Giving a smallholder farmer or send an SMS with a link to an application, download it on your smartphone, and then hope that they will start using it and eventually start register themselves to make financial transaction. Keep on dreaming, won't happen. So it needs boots on the ground engagement, going there, walking there to these farmers, go to the field, work with them, and hands-on engagement. So that only works, obviously, it's integrated in a closed loop ecosystem. I don't think a fintech on its own has the money available to spend time to go there just for the loan. We don't see that much happening. It's been tried. It's seldom worked out. If it's integrated in other paid activities within supply chains, fully end-to-end inclusion where different parties pay different services, integration with agri-input providers, with financial institutions, and also with the off-takers. So costs can be shared to finance the boots on the ground. Because in the end, someone's going to go there to help them register. Try to get yourself registered on one of those financing solutions with taking pictures and the ID scan. We have so many, oh my goodness, we have to hire more help desk staff just to get farmers doing it who try it on their own. It's not that we have crappy apps, it's also with other APIs we integrate from our financial gateway service providers. So it needs someone to go there, meaning through a farm mapping effort, you say, okay, by the way, did you download the new app? Okay, let me help you to get on to the app. Okay, now, here we go. Next time you go selling your cocoa, you will get cashless payment on the wallet. I help you to install. And it's all paid through an ecosystem, because it won't be paid with a 1.5% margin on a smallholder loan. Impossible. So it needs the boots on the ground that are in the field working across the supply chains.
Thanks, Manfred, for that example as well from your experience on the field. And I want also to ask Renen on this, and how will Maya know from your model that there is interest, and excuse for our audience for a little bit over time, but usually have this a little bit of overtime on our end, but we have really interesting questions. But for Renen, how do Maya's plans in terms of I know there's a focus on SME, that middle part of the supply chain. What are your plans in going into the actual fields, and how do you navigate that here in the Philippines?
Yeah, thanks, Borge. So actually, I agree. I agree so much with Manfred that that's really there's a lot of challenge in terms of making them first aware. Second is teaching them how to use it, right? So if there's also a benefit of them shifting to a digital payment, right? So because they're used to well they're earning money already in terms of cash, right? So but it's really making them realize there's really a lot more opportunities if you shift, right? So providing them access as well to credit in terms of for their hardware is actually a key. But at the end of the day, it will be a question of, okay, is this a credit worthy person, right? So and then that's where your conversation goes into, like, okay, then we now teach you how to build your credit score, right? So through our services, right? So those are technically those are basically conversations with these guys. And concept is another thing, right? So where do you use it, how do you use it, what's that for? It's very important that they understand, especially when they just know how to plant and of course sell it, right? So yeah, we have to be very very critical about it. And then the third one is pricing, right? So uh, in that space you have a very little margin, right? So if these guys are going to be charged with cost by using your product, then definitely they won't do it, right? So that's why we have a very very conscious effort in making sure that we price our services very good. In fact, we are actually offering most of our services for the MSME for free, right? So that they'll be able to really adapt and see the benefit out of really shifting it to digital, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Renen, for that example. And thank you to our speakers for a little bit over time, as we commonly do. I think we have to rethink of an hour section for these engaging topic in particular. But to wrap things up, I would like to, first of all, give thanks to our speakers, Isvary, Ravi, Renen, and Manfred, for your time this afternoon, and to all of our attendees who has been with us since earlier at 4 p.m. Singapore time and has been with us until now. But just to close and highlight some critical points that we have heard from our speakers today is that reaching farmers, there's still a need to bridge the gap between technology and farmers. It's a critical point of contact and building that capacity along the way. And this involves not only giving them access to digital tools, but ensuring that digital literacy and addressing infrastructure limitations through possibly some of that enabling environment support. There's also building trust, I would say, that I got from the speakers today, particularly providing protection and trust. Building the trust is paramount when you're dealing with not just smallholder farmers, but SMEs along the value chain, to make them feel confident in doing these financial transactions, especially converting from a cash base to a digital base in terms of transactions, and protecting them from, I would say, another topic, protecting them from potential fraud or exploitation along the way, some of those risks that are inherent in this type of technology. And there's also that innovative solutions are needed to assess creditworthiness and to enable really that improvement, not just on the farm level, but across the value chain, no matter the commodities would be, especially for the farmers that lack informal financial records, as Ravi pointed out earlier. It's and Isvary as well, something that smallholder farmers would really benefit in terms of having formal financial records to take note of their creditworthiness and for them to enable to become entrepreneurs and businesses themselves. And there are alternative data sources and models that could play a significant role to that. And on that note, I would like to, again, thanks everyone for joining us today. We will be back in a series similar to this in the coming months for the next year. Again, this is Borge from Grow Asia, and we thank you all for joining our digital learning series today. And thanks to all our speakers. Have a good day to everyone. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.